Good morning. Before I begin with our opening words, I do want to tell you, first of all, I'm Pastor Kris, which you'll find out more about in a minute. I don't have anything except allergies, so if you hear me sneeze or cough, that's why, and that's all I wanted to say. Our opening words today are from Gretchen Haley, forged in the fire of our coming together. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes and forwarded emails, as if the new zodiac, capable of forecasting all that life may yet bring our way. As if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it all already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and in our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. And that is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together in person or online, and felt in the spirit that comes alive with this act of faith, that we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it right here and right now. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. Welcome to the Community Unitarian Universalist Church, and welcome to our very first online worship service. My name is Jen Mason, and I am one of our worship associates. This church, like all Unitarian Universalist congregations, is founded on a common vision rather than a required creed. The belief we all share is the conviction that every single person on earth has inherent worth and dignity and deserves to be treated with kindness. And the mission we share is to nourish spirits, work for justice, and transform lives. Community Church's diversity of beliefs is reflected in our open pulpit, and this means that our minister and guest speakers are free to share their truth, whatever that is. We do not expect you to agree with everything that you hear. At our church, all means all. We welcome your joy and your sorrows, your full personhood and your broken places, your curiosity and your fears, and your seeking and finding and dreaming and knowing. As we gather in this time of the corona's COVID-19, I'd like to say thank you to you for taking the time to join us online. To our Board of Trustees who made the tough but correct decision to prioritize our community's safety by closing this building and moving online during this time. To the many doctors, nurses, medical workers, and scientists who have given us so much of their time, effort, and love, especially right now. And finally, thank you to all of our neighbors and friends here and elsewhere who have shown in great ways and small ways that we are really, really good at this caring for another stuff.
Yeah, we are.
Community UU Church of Plano will be closed until we have assurances from our healthcare community that it is safe to reopen. However, we are already scheming about how we can help one another stay connected. If you have ideas or skills that could help, this is a great time to step up. Some ideas we're working on include online offerings such as meditation, story time for kids, a virtual coffee hour, and perhaps interactive adult religious education using Zoom or Facebook or some other platform. A buddy system where church members and friends who are interested are paired up, agreeing to call or text to check in once a day with one another. volunteer signups to help with basic tech support over the phone, doing meal or grocery deliveries, picking up prescriptions, other things like that. We're still working out the details, so stay tuned to our webpage, email, Facebook, and phone to learn more over the next few days. Now, our speaker today, as she has introduced herself, is our consulting minister, Pastor Kris Cervantes. Once again, we are privileged to hear her wise words.
Thank you. In greening lands begins the song, which deep in human hearts is strong. In cheerful strains your voices raise, to fill the whole spring world with praise. In greening lands begins the song, which deep in human hearts is strong. In cheerful strains your voices raise, to fill the whole spring world with praise.
We light this chalice to find inner peace, to love each other and faith in ourselves, also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share our time together. It's now time for our invocation, and it's called Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fires, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. And now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go.
Our opening song today is to the tune of Blue Boat Home, but it is called Kindred We Now Meet to Worship, and it was written very recently by Thomas Snell, a UU minister, in order to sort of address the situation we find ourselves in. So we will post the words in the comments, and you feel free to join along. Sing along. Kindred we now meet to worship, reaching out through screen and phone. Though we dwell in isolation, all connections no less real, worshiping beyond our building. We don't have to be alone, though we cannot meet in person. Covenant unites us still. Siblings share a song of gladness, lifting spirits, spreading cheer, so that in these days of sadness we won't be confused by fear. In this time of mass confusion, sickness, loss, and overwhelm, let's encourage one another. Hands not joined, but hearts are held. Friends, be gentle with each other. There's so much we're going through. May this be a time for healing, holding space for grieving too. Bodies, minds, and hearts are weary. Anguish fills the aching soul, but we know with perseverance broken hearts can be made whole.
It's now time for our responsive reading, and for this morning it is so appropriate. It is called Pandemic by Lynn Unger.
What if you thought of it as the Jews contemplate the Sabbath, the most sacred of times?
Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling, give up just for now on trying to make the world different than it is.
Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down.
And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we're connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now.
Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear.
Do not reach out with your hands. Reach out with your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch.
Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, as long as we all shall live.
A covenant is the silk that joins Unitarian Universalist congregations, communities, and individuals together in a web of interconnection. The practice of promising to walk together is the precious core of our creedless faith. We're going to recite this covenant now.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. So now it's time for our message for all ages. So I'm gonna move the camera a little bit, and then I'm gonna teach you kids something cool that then I want you to go teach your parents, okay? So here we go. Okay, kiddos, it's time for the message for all ages. And what I'm going to do today is teach you something just to make sure you know it, because I don't think your parents do, and I want you to teach them. So, what are the 3 things that you need to wash your hands? You need water. You need a little soapy soap. Oh, here we'll hide the brand name. It's fine. Anything, any kind of soap. It's all good. And you need hands or flippers or limbs or branches, whatever you have. And so what you're going to do is put a little soap in your hand. It doesn't have to be all that much, just like that, one pump. And then you're going to get a little water. Put that in your hand too. And then you're going to start scrubbing. Oh, look at those bubbles. They're already starting. See them? So you want to scrub, and then point it up a little higher. So one thing you don't know maybe, or that I didn't know before, is that you have to wash your hands for a long time to really be safe. And since people are getting sick and we want to protect them, then we have to wash our hands for a long time, even though we're maybe not in that habit. So I have a song for you to learn, and if you sing this song while you wash your hands, once or twice even, that would be great, then you'll know that they're real clean, and then you can teach your parents the song. Okay, so I know you'll know this tune, you kids. Here's how it goes. You just keep scrubbing. Washing my hands, it is time to wash my hands. Everyone, safe and clean. So like I said, you could even sing it twice, but make sure you get your fingers, get your thumbs, and you can take your fingernails like this, it tickles a little, and like this, and that gets the dirt out from under them, because you know, I go out in my yard and my fingernails are always dirty. So once you're done, you got all the soap, you've sung it through twice even, then you just rinse it off, make a big mess. Oh, yay, and dry. Whew. And you are all done and clean, and now you won't make anybody else sick, and as long as you don't pick their nose, they won't make you sick either. So that's all I have for you today. Next week, I'm going to teach you how to make a chalice at home out of stuff you already have. So I look forward to that. Okay, right, so this is the time in the service where we would normally have our book of joys and sorrows brought forward to share those with each other in the hopes that by doing so, our joys are multiplied and our sorrows are lightened. But of course, there's no book today because it still has last Sunday's things in it. And so what I want to do now is just, if you believe in praying, or if that's something you're comfortable with, you could pray with me. If you're not a prayer, then you can also just close your eyes and kind of get into a calm, centered space. What do I want to say? Spirit of life. Spirit of life. This is what we need now, the spirit of life.
So a phone call.
So, for our pastoral prayer today, I offer up these words. Spirit of life, we need you today more than ever. As our friends and neighbors stay home, as we all practice social distancing, as we care for our community by keeping ourselves at home, we begin to feel isolated, perhaps. We begin to feel afraid with only our own thoughts to guide us, and without quite so much company and interaction as we're used to. And so, in this time of confusion and unknowing and fear of the unknown, grant us patience, grant us strength, grant us hands to help where we can, and hearts that will love whether we're in the room or not, and minds that will think of the ways that this will change us and move forward, having learned the lessons of this time. For now, as we still dwell in the unknowing and within this space of who knows what's coming, just breathe, take care of yourself, go outside if you can, look up at the sky, look down at the earth, remember to breathe. Our reading today is by Patrick Murphin. I do not have a personal relationship with God. I've lost God's phone number. God never answers the mail. We did not, as young men, hang out on Wednesday nights, cigarettes dripping from our lips, at pool halls. He is not there like an old neighbor to fix my broken lawnmower, to hand me a soda on a blazing hot day. When I rip my shin on a jutting shelf and cry out her name, God does not rush to me with Band-Aids and peroxide. God does not, at times of vexation, when my world lies shattered, my relationships ruptured, my children insolent, my finances hopeless, come with soothing counsel to my side. God does not take my requests like a long-distance dedication on America's Top 40, or deliver within 5 business days, heck, 2, or my money back on my catalog order. My business is not important to God. I do not have a personal relationship with God. But in quiet moments, in the familiar whistle of a red-winged blackbird on a cattail, or in spider webs glinting with dew in the grass of a clear sunrise, or the passing attention of an old cat. He, she, it, God, whatever, does not speak or do or answer, but admits me to fleeting union with the greater. All right, so for our offering today, what I would like to do is show you how to donate online. So normally we would be passing the plates, but that just seems like kind of a germ factory, and that's part of the reason that we closed our doors today. So the first thing is you're going to go to communityuuchurch.org, and once you're there, just get that reflection, scroll up. And right there, look at that. You can donate, you can pledge, you can set it up to have monthly deductions for your pledge, or you can make a one-time donation just today. I will say that at this time, if you wish to mark your donations MDF for Ministers Discretionary Fund, that money will be used to help folks who experience economic hardship during these closures. And then later the money is used to help members of our faith community. And so that would be welcome at this time. I don't think I have anything else for the offering. Yeah. All right, so let's see. Yeah. All right. Well, it's time to go on to my reflection/sermon. This is called Job's Journey, Releasing Certainty. It feels a little on the nose to be preaching from the book of Job right this minute. And so I am going to, though. There's a lot of wisdom for us right now. But this reflection changed a bit. So I'm going to read first from the book of Job, chapter 30. It goes like this. This is Job speaking. Surely one does not turn against the ruined when in disaster they cry for help. Did I not weep for those whose day was hard? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? But when I looked for good, evil came. And when I waited for light, darkness came. But my inward parts are in turmoil and are never still. Days of affliction come to meet me. I go about in sunless gloom. I stand up in the assembly and cry for help. And then, a few chapters later, Job answers, and here's how that goes. Then the Holy One of old answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you, and you shall declare to me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from my womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band and prescribed bounds for it and set bars and doors and said, thus far shall you come and no further, and here your proud waves be stopped? Well, who was it, Job? Was it you who contained the raging waters? No, it wasn't. It was me. God's answer isn't so much an answer as it is an anvil. It is dropped onto the pathetically drooping Eeyore, who is Job, once God and God as opponent are done with him. Like many good but ruthless teachers in our lives, God answers Job's questions with yet more questions. One of my most beloved seminary professors often said in her very soft voice, of course there are bad questions. It's our job to ask good questions. And I think, personally, if they're really good questions, we may never get an answer. Job's plea, his demand of God that God appear in court and give a reckoning of God's self for all this injustice, is made up of questions. Did I not weep for those whose day was hard? Job asks. And the previous chapters are an exhaustive list of the many ways in which Job lived as a righteous human in thought, word, and deed. I delivered the poor who cried and the orphan who had no helper. The blessing of the wretched came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I was a father to the needy, and I championed the cause of the stranger. So the reader, us, we're to understand Job as a reliable narrator. Not only does Job say that Job is righteous, God says so in the opening conversation between God as creator and God as opponent. Job's friends, who I gotta say are a big bag of duds, keep insisting that Job deserves his fate. But Job knows, he knows that his current situation, destitute, desolate, despairing, is not his fault. Job's questions for God are good questions. They're the same questions we all ask when we're confronted with the injustice of pain, suffering, and death. These are the questions we ask ourselves right now. Why me? Why now? What did I do? How do I fix it? What do you mean I can't fix it? The God of the Hebrew Bible, especially as presented in Torah books like Leviticus and Deuteronomy, is a God of order and equity. Although no one uses the word karma in the Jewish scriptures that I know of, the idea is pretty omnipresent. Bad behavior leads to bad sad, miserable, poverty-stricken life. Good behavior leads to a good, happy, well-fed, prosperous life. Does this sound familiar? Of course it is. It's hardwired into us. So Job's questions are good questions. Now, it's true also that Job is an archetype, an amalgam, a paper cutout character, the righteous man, trademark 600 BCE-ish. But Job is also one of the most relatable characters in the Bible because there is not one of us who hasn't gone or will not go through life without experiencing disorder and iniquity. For some of us, sometimes, it becomes impossible to reconcile the all-knowing, always just God that we've been told to worship with this endless misery and tragedy that we might see in our lives. There's a branch of theology called theodicy. It's defending God's attributes against objections resulting from physical and moral evil, and to say that much more simply, theodicy is the branch of theology that tries to answer Job's real question, the one below all his protestations and accusations. Why do bad things happen to good people? And this is why I have come to love the book of Job. God never answers. She isn't silent, but God's rebuttal emphasizes the unknowability of God. God launches into this epic poem about the beauties of creation, from constellations to chemistry. The inner lives of stars are no more a secret to God than the inner lives of the goats that leap on the crags or the monsters that swim silently in the deep. God never answers Job's questions about justice and fairness and why me. Instead, God speaks to Job and says, I'm God, and you're not. Which is patronizing and wildly frustrating, except that, as I say, God is God. Any God that I could believe in is bigger than me. God is God, just as mystery is mystery, just as love is love, as infinity is infinity. And we humans, we really aren't. We're human. We seek out God and mystery and love and infinity, but we are bounded by our lives, by our mortality, by our frailty, by the soft animal of our body, loving what it loves, as Mary Oliver would say. What God says to Job is pitiless and stark. There is no answer given, but strangely, there might be comfort. Are you sad from these deaths? God seems to say. Fine, be sad, but look too at this, the universe. Look at me. Look at the great breathing body that is the entire cosmos. Death is here within me, just as life is a part of the whole. And no, you're never going to quite be able to understand that. But take comfort anyway, God says. Look at the singing stars, the proud roar of the waves. See the hares and the oxen and the bugs, the great seething foundations of the earth and sky, the infinite small lives within its care. Look at them and be comforted, and know that you are part of all of this. Theologian Thomas Edward Frank wrote of this particular passage of Job, the utter indifference of nature to the concerns of human beings is the closest we come to grasping God's response here. Nature writers and poets marvel continually at the world's opacity to human passions. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine, writes poet Mary Oliver in her poem Wild Geese. Meanwhile, she says, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. So is there comfort in this ordered indifference? The poets think there is. Oliver says, whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself up to your imagination. And this indeed we count on. That Deuteronomic view of God as justice giver is very unsatisfying because it reduces God to this cosmic bean counter who's a petty referee for every dispute of our squabbling species. It also reinforces some really toxic religious ideas that tell us that those who suffer everything from hangnails to COVID-19 deserve what they get. And of course, those who thrive, well, they must be the godliest, considering how prosperous they are. Job gives us a way out of this dull, ugly, hurtful prosperity gospel. Job says, no, sometimes things just suck. Sometimes it's not anyone's fault. Sometimes life is dust and ash in the mouth, and that is it. We know that what we're facing in the next days and weeks will be different than anything most of us have faced in our lives. We know that we feel confused and overwhelmed together. We know that it's hard not to be able to come even here to our community, our church, and spend time with one another. And yet, we do have all of the great cosmos to comfort us. And yet, we live in a time where technology provides us the opportunity to stay connected, to stay in touch with one another. And so, amidst our confusion, our fear, our wondering, our questions, will everything be okay? Will I be okay? Know that. Just as the world is mostly indifferent to our sufferings, it still offers up the comfort and beauty of nature. And so, if you can, step outside. Stand under the cover of a tree as it drizzles, or step out into the sunshine. Plant in your garden if you have one. Tend to your little window plants if you have those. Pet your dog. Pet your cat. Pet your hamsters and snakes. Take comfort where you can. As our words earlier said, touch only those to whom you commit your life. We can touch one another with more than hands, and we can seek solace throughout the great world. And we have to remember that just as we meet and gather together each week to have strength and be nurtured, we will continue to do that in different ways and in new ways, because the only way that we'll get through this is by taking care of one another. Amen.
And now for our closing song, Meditation on Breathing.
Okay. So, hi, Elena. This is a song that has 3 parts. And what we're going to do is we're going to teach you each of the parts, and then we're going to sing it together and have a little fun. And you can join in and sing along as you wish. You can add harmonies. You can do any one of the 3 parts. But let's learn them first. So we start with what's called a drone. It's a very simple, like just ba, ba, okay? And it's just going to go like this. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So that's easy enough, right? You can do that. The next part has a few more words, but it's still not difficult. And so it's the melody, and it goes like this. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. And that's the melody. Now the third part is what's called a descant, which means it's a shiny part way up high. It's not that high, but it's just there to sort of complement the melody and the drone. And it goes like this. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. it goes. Now, I played around a little bit there. I added some little fancy schmancy notes, and you can do the same thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sing all together the drone twice. Then we're going to sing the melody together, and then we're going to sing the melody at least one more time with Elena on the melody and me on the descant, and then we'll end with that slow drone to just remind us to breathe in and breathe out. Okay, here we go. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
When I breathe in,
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace.
when I breathe
When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Again.
when I breathe in,
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace.
when I breathe
When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Let's do that drone. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. All right. Thank you so much for those closing words. And if you will now join us for the extinguishing of the chalice.
Please join me now in reciting these words.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. For our benediction, there it is. I need my iPad. For our benediction, I share with you the words of the Reverend Lee Pizzula, who wrote these new Beatitudes for us. One moment. Blessed are the elderly and the immunosuppressed. Blessed are the fearful, the anxious, the irritable. Blessed are the ones who use humor to get by, the ones who could use a vacation anyway, the ones who fear for their lives. Blessed are the ones who are sick of it, all the flawed logic and the security theater. Blessed are the ones who cry out, "This is why we need a safety net, a kinder society, a new world." Blessed are the healthcare workers, the administrators catching heat for every decision, the messengers with no power over the message. Blessed are the sad and the lonely. Blessed are the healthy and the sick, the well and the unwell. Blessed are all of us just trying to do the best we can. Blessed are those who stay kind and clear, who keep our eyes open to one another. Blessed is our neighbor. Blessed are we all. Blessed are we all. Blessed are we all. Go in peace. Stay in touch.